The program I'm going to talk to you about tonight was a very emotional one for me to put together. I've never given this lecture before. I've given many lectures about many different topics over the years, and this one has been the most challenging for several reasons. One of the reasons is because of the topic itself. To be talking about Kamehameha Nui on any level is very important, and to be talking about his death in particular was a very, very emotional experience to research this topic. So I'm going to be emotional throughout this whole thing. I hope I get a little better, but I'm still feeling the after effects of this. So, this program is going to feature the part when he dies, where he dies, what happens to his body, how it's prepared, and everything, and then ultimately, where was he buried? And I know a lot of you, if not most of you, are here particularly for that aspect of this story. Where is Kamehameha buried, right? Raise your hand, come on, I know you got it. Okay, but before we get to there, it's very, very important to tell the complete story about all these other aspects leading up to the death, because it's not just where his burial. The story of his death is not only about his burial. And you're going to learn from this, and I learned a lot myself. Even though I knew some things before, I learned a lot doing this. So I'm going to share what I learned. And I used about 30 different sources, and one of the major challenges is that the different sources have different versions of the different parts of it. So I did my best to try to figure out, best as I could figure out, the sequence of events. But I may be wrong in certain aspects because the amount of information we have is somewhat large, but not tremendously large. So bear in mind that the exact sequences may not be exactly right, but I think I got it down pretty good. Okay, let's start by looking at just a brief prelude to the story. That Kamehameha did his journey of unification from 1795 to 1810. And he started off, he was a chief, started off from a lowly chief and then became the ali'i nui of the island of Hawaii. And then his journeys to conquer Maui and then going across the Kapu. And then from Oahu, he launched and attempted to take over Kauai, but as many of you know, he hit a roadblock and wasn't able to do that. But nevertheless, he did unify all of the islands. We know, there's a lot of things we don't know about the life and death of Kamehameha, but we know for certain that he died on, there's many, many sources that know this, and I got this from, May 8, 1819. That's for sure. But what we don't know for sure is his age at death. Raise your hand if you were here for the very first lecture on the birth of Kamehameha. And what was your general, Tori, what was your general takeaway from when he was born?
One passed away probably as an elder gentleman.
As an elder gentleman, but insofar as a date, what did you guys get from that? 1758, okay. There was all different kinds of speculations about when his birthday is, and we don't know for sure when his birthday is. Therefore, we don't know for sure how old he was when he died. Okay. And that's been a subject of debate, his birth and death date for many, many years. Okay, so we do know exactly where he died. Exactly. He died on the island of Hawaii. And here's a map I have of showing the moku, the major districts of the island of Hawaii. And on the western side, we have the Kona district. Okay. Now we call it North and South Kona, but back in the day, Kamehameha's time, it was just the whole one, wasn't North and South, it was just Kona. So he died in the Moku, the district of Kona, in the pinkish color there. And he died in the Ahupua'a of Puapua'a. Now, Kamehameha, when he was, after he fulfilled his conquest, he held his court like all the chiefs did. They roamed. They didn't just stay in one place and this is the capital. They roamed from island to island, and wherever they lived at the time was the capital. So after he unified the islands, he first lived and resided in Honolulu, on the island of Oahu. He also then lived in Lahaina, on the island of Maui, and a short time on Lanai. And then his last and final residential place was in Kailua, the village of Kailua. Today we call it Kailua Kona, but then it was just Kailua. So here's some dots showing where his residents were. So he dies in the village of Kailua. Oops. Here's an aerial view showing Kailua Bay today. And take a look to the left of the screen and you're going to see in a circular red thing that he lived in a compound, a residential compound, which has a name. Kamaka Kahonu, which means the eye of the turtle. And then Kamakahonu was the residential compound, but next door was also something else. So you have here in this photo showing you Kamakahonu, the residential compound, and then to the right there you have Ahuena Heiau. So collectively, those two, the compound and Ahuena, become the Kamakahonu complex. How many of you have been there to this site? Oh, good. To the actual Heiau and everything? Good, good. I was trying desperately to finish this so I could go there. I really needed to go there for a couple of days before this, but I never made it, so I'm going to go pretty soon. Yeah, with Southwest. So yes. So there's a King Kamehameha Hotel in the background there. Now we don't know exactly how far out the Kamakahonu residential compound extended out to Mauka. We're not exactly sure, but we know the shoreline area at least. So let's look at the Kamakahonu complex as it exists today. The heiau that you see on the left is a reconstructed heiau. The original heiau that was there, that was built centuries ago, deteriorated and pretty much disappeared, except for a few rock foundations. And then, so we have the heiau on your left, and then the Kamakahonu residential compound on your right. Take a look at the coconut trees there. Those aren't original coconut trees. They replanted those during development, but that whole district, that whole compound was filled with coconut trees. So it looked pretty much like this. The complex, Kamakahonu residential complex, consisted, they say the complex, consisted of Ahuena Heiau, and then the residential compound, which consisted of a number of different buildings and such. Just quickly, it had houses for Kamehameha. He had 2 houses in the complex. There was Haleo Ka'ahumanu, Queen Ka'ahumanu's residence. Then Hale Mua, the men's eating house. Hale Aina, the women's eating house. Hale Ho'ahu, the storage house. Hale Moi, the sleeping house. Halau, a working shed. Hale Poke, the bone house. And Hale Ali'i, several houses for lesser ali'i all around in the complex. So there was a lot of buildings in there. There were a lot of people. Questions at the end?
No, interrupt. We can't see the picture. You
Oh, I'm sorry.
of it.
Okay.
It's to move on. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is that better?
That's better.
If I go like this? Oh, okay, I'll look at the screen instead. Okay. Yeah. for pointing that out.
Scoot it over.
That's
Close to
good.
you. Like that? Is that good?
That's perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Here's a drawing, not a drawing, a lithograph of what's labeled as Kamehameha's court in Kailua from the year 1816. So 3 years before he died. Now notice here, what's going on in this picture? Who's in this picture? We see that there are some Westerners in the picture. There's some sailors kneeling down in front of a hale. And then we have some chiefs and chiefesses around, and then we have some other people around. And in the background, you see to the right, you see the part of Ahuena Heao. So this is one of the earliest foreigners' view of the Hawaiian Islands in general. 1816 was a very early on to be having pictures like this of Kona in particular. Of course, there were artists and illustrators that came with Captain Cook and then Vancouver and all the early explorers, and they had similar drawings of the islands in general. But here's a beautiful picture of a setting in Kona, it's in Kailua itself. Here's another view of, from 1819, and it's labeled as the house of Kalanimoku, who was the high chief, and he resided in that complex as well. Now notice here some of the features. I love this because it has daily life things going on. We have a woman beating kapa over here. We have a chief, I don't know if that's Kalanimoku or not, over here. And then we have umeke here, gourds over here, and we have I think this is a metal pan. It's showing daily life. This might not sure if that's beaten kapa of some kind out to dry, but it shows daily life going on in Kailua. Here's a picture with Herb Kane. I have a number of Herb Kane paintings because he's done so many of them good ones. So here's a picture showing from the shoreline, the heiau in the back. And in the foreground, we have men going out on fishing, I guess, and kids running along the beach. And then, oops, sorry. Oops. Okay, we have a group of 4 men over here, 2 Hawaiians and 2 foreigners. I'm pretty sure this one is John Young from our history. We know that he came and was involved in a very famous, scandalous incident called the Oluwalu Massacre, but he ends up staying here, and he actually lived and had the king Kamehameha gave him a compound in Kauai High. And so he became a prominent figure, one of the very first foreigners to make a major impact in the Hawaiian Islands. And I think this must be the ship captain, whoever was his ship over here. And then we have 2 Hawaiians, and notice that they're carrying muskets and they're strapped with ammunition and everything. So by 1819, we see that foreign influence is already pretty strong in that time. And they're advising the Hawaiians, and the Hawaiians are listening. And they have a cannon. These foreigners brought the cannons, so they're talking to the Hawaiians about how to use these in Kamehameha's army. So they're getting advice from the foreigners on how to wage warfare. So let's talk about the events leading up to the death of Kamehameha. In his years living at Kailua, Kamehameha enjoyed a peaceful life, spending much of his free time fishing. Kamehameha was described as being strong, his eyes not dim, head not bowed, and he did not lean upon a cane. It was his gray hair alone, only, that one could tell his age. It is also mentioned that he was missing his 2 front teeth. It is said that he bashed out his own teeth in mourning for the death of one of his wives, ali'i wahine kalola. Here's another Herb Connie picture, and I love the way Kamehameha is depicted in this image. Not with his regalia, his feather capes and helmets. What is he? How did he, Herb Connie? How did he portray Kamehameha in this picture?
One of the people.
One of the people. And what is the action? Why is he pointing his hand down? He's pointing his hand down. Look how he has just a simple kihei on here. And he's pointing down, and his hand gesture is actually referring to these fish. Does anybody recognize this fish in particular? Ahu. Who said ahu? Aku, not aku. Aku. That's bonito in English. Kamehameha was well known for his fisherman skills, and in particular, he liked to fish for aku. So that's a great image of him sharing his, just being a plain fisherman and sharing stories with his younger chiefs. One of whom may be his son, who's going to inherit the throne, Liho. But these chiefs are not named like Kani. And again, who's this? Who recognizes who this is? Kapu Manu. We know there's a famous image of her early life that people like, and she comes out this way usually. So here she is watching watching the activities and a very peaceful time. When Kamehameha starts becoming ill and his death seems imminent, the various chiefs were summoned together to have a chief's council, and a call went out, and runners were sent all around the island to call for the chiefs to come collectively and talk about what's happening, what's going to happen with Kamehameha. So this is a picture, a painting by Brooke Parker. Many of you know a Hawaiian artist. Like Herb Connie, Brooke is a younger generation who is doing really, really important work of documenting Hawaiian culture in paintings. So it's not often we can, through their painting, we can see these ali'i come to life. We can see the maka'anana coming to life. So their work is really, really important to me. So here we have some chiefs gathered up, and in the background we have, and then we have kahili bearers with the chiefs, and then this person. Anybody want to guess as who this might be? Not as in the name, but what is his function? I know some of you in the audience know this. Kim and Mele. I'll talk about it. This is a kahuna, okay, and I'll talk about kahuna la'au in a minute. And then somebody over here blowing a poo, so calling out, kahea, making a call. For the, and they sent out runners with the poo all around the island, blowing the poo and delivering the news that the king is dead. That's how the news got out. They sent runners on land and people in canoes going up and down the coast. Too. That's how they delivered the news in those days. So here's some images of kahuna, la'au, lapa'au. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize, unless you study Hawaiian history, that there were many, many different kinds of kahuna. The general term kahuna does not mean priest necessarily. There was a priesthood within the kahuna array, but there were kahuna va'a. Kahuna was a person who had specific knowledge of something, an expert in a topic area. So kahuna la'au, lapa'au were medical practitioners that specialize in herbal medicine and using plants and things. And here we can recognize them very clearly. This is what? Noni. What is this? Kukui. What is this? Avapuhi. And then I think it's Olena. Olena. I'm not sure what this is. Popolo. Okay. And then we have, so within the realm of healers, not Kahuna Va'a or other practitioners did something else. Within the healing arts, we have specialists. So here's a specialist setting bones over here, I think, setting bones, and somebody manipulating his chest, this person's chest. So using their hands to do manipulations and such. Now, when the kahea went out, many priests were called in, kahuna were called in, different specialties were called in. And here we have, this isn't his real picture, but UH-Manoa Ikala was a famous healer on the island of Maui and Hana. So he was called in. He was supposed to be the highest healer of the land at that time. Kamehameha's last days. There were many buildings, as I showed you, in the complex, and I'm not sure where each one was. So, but I think it's this one right next to the heiau was Kamehameha's second house. Not his primary house, but his second house. And it had a name. It was Hale Nana Mahina Ai. And some people know Mahina can be switched out for Mahiai. What is Mahiai? Farmer. So this second house that Kamehameha had was facing Mauka if you're facing Mauka, what mountain do you see? Hualalai volcano. So he oriented it specifically to look Mauka so that when he was there, he could look out into the farmlands and assess what was going on in his farmlands. Because besides just being a lihi who sat around and, he had to manage the lands. He had to be aware of what was going on on his lands, and then direct his lower lieutenants to go out and, you guys need to clean up over here or get the farm over here going. So this was a very important house for him. But at this time, when he was ill, what did they put in front of the house, Bahari? Kapu sticks, but these are a little different. Usually we see them with the little sack at the top, filled with kapa, filled with different kinds of soft materials. So this is an unusual image of the kapu sticks without that. Nevertheless, that's what it represents. And people again going about their business in the ocean and talking story. Here's another picture by Brooke Parker. In a healing house that was attended to by Kahuna La'au. And what I like, there's many things I like about this photo. One is a beautiful, not photo, but a painting. A beautiful, richly colored painting showing, giving us an idea of the interior structure of this hale. And again, the medicinal plants. And then here we have a mortar and pestle. We have different kinds of bowls and things to hold different items. And even showing a pillow. And I think this is not regular Lauhala mat, but I think this is Makaloa mat, which is a higher quality of mat. Mostly associated with the island of Hawaii. So here's depicting Kamehameha actually on his deathbed, attended to by La'au Lapa'au. And this one in particular, he's holding what I call a mini key or idol, a key that's handheld, that's portable, that the kahunas could take this wherever they went in their journeys. And it wasn't just stationary at the heiau. Now, besides the Hawaiian medical practitioners, there was one guy there. His name was Don Francisco de Paula Marin. Most people, if you study Hawaiian history, know that Marin. What is Marin most famous for in Hawaiian history? Agriculture, did you say? grapes. Vineyard Boulevard. He had a grape vineyard over there. That's right. So he was a Spaniard who came out here, and he became very, very quickly associated with the elite. They were enamored of this guy. He was a little guy, they said, and but he could speak Spanish and English, and then learned Hawaiian. He stayed here and settled here. So he arrived in 1793. He was trained as a horticulturalist, interpreter, and de facto physician to King Kamehameha I, even though he had no medical experience or training. I maybe attribute this to being that he was a horticulturalist and maybe he knew about herbal medicines and that sort of thing. But he was often called to treat and help treat, along with the kahuna medical practitioners. Let's talk about the final moments before death. So he's on his deathbed, and the chiefs and everybody they're talking, you know, what do we need to do next? What's our next? What are the protocols here? The two most important things on their minds were how many people should be sacrificed, as traditional practice dictates, and who should hide the iwi of the king? Okay, that comes later. So let's look at the first question here. How many people should be sacrificed? In Hawaiian culture, the Kapu system, the Kapu laws that govern all aspects of religious, personal, and social life in Hawaii. Sacrificing was very common. Not all levels of strata of society would have sacrificial people, but all the elite definitely. So here's two ways, at least, that people were killed for sacrifice. One was by strangulation, and the word is ka'ave, strangulation. I'm sure there was other methods of strangulation, but here's a great image of one. There's another one, hahau, to strike or to beat, so to bludgeon somebody to death. Another way of killing somebody for sacrifice was by drowning. So there was a big debate going on. This is the highest ali'i of the, not just the district, the moku, or of the island, or he was the ali'i nui of all the islands.
What is the thought purpose of sacrifice?
Okay, you know what? I need to limit questions to the end because I have a lot of material. But ask that question at the end. Thank you. Okay. So they're going. Oh, somebody said, 3 to 5. That would suffice. No. We need 10. No. We need 20. And that debate went on. So we don't know exactly what they came up with, but it could have been as high as 30. I've seen the number 30. Somebody mentioned. But we don't know for sure. So then, the king is dying, the messengers have gone out, and they know what the protocol is. If you're maka'ainana, you're going like this. Oh my God. You know, this means us. They want us. They're not going to sacrifice an ali'i. They're going to sacrifice us. So they start running out of kailua. They went to the uplands by foot. From Kailua down here, they ran up the mountain to escape, and they escaped by canoe along the Kona coast. There was like a mass exodus going on there. They didn't want to be sacrificed. But to everybody's dismay and shock, Kamehameha tells his ali'i crew, no, that's it. No more human sacrifice. I don't want one person to die on mine and become sacrifice for me. Okay? They didn't like this. There was debate. There was arguments going on. What? That can't happen. It just can't happen. But in the end, Kamehameha had his way. And there were no sacrifices for Kamehameha. First of its kind in the history of Hawaiian history that this did not happen. So this becomes, and I think Ralph will talk about this after, the transition is happening here, a great transition that is implemented because of the death of Kamehameha. Big, huge changes are coming. Okay, but however, that didn't stop two people from begging to be the moipu, the sacrifices. One was named Ke'amahuli Hi'ia, who was a close friend of Kamehameha, who threw himself upon the corpse and begged to be sacrificed. This was a little bit later after he died. And then there was Ali'i Nui who was there, Kalani who also begged to be sacrificed, in spite of Kamehameha's edict, but neither were allowed to be sacrificed. The kiss of death. So Kamehameha is evidently dying, and he did. Just after midnight on May 8th, Kamehameha's closest relatives and court advisors entered the death house to honi, kiss the dying king, by touching noses and saying their last goodbyes. Some of the people that came and went at that time to honi him were his heir, Liho, Queen Kapu, one of his queens, his favorite wife, and the most powerful wife of the king of the land, and his sacred wife, Keopuolani. And then there was Chief Kalani Chief Ke'eaumoku, John Young, the American, and John Francisco Marin, the Spaniard. They all came and went, said their last goodbyes. Now, a lot of you know that Kamehameha's war god was Kukailimoku, and this idol went wherever he went and gave him great power. Okay? And it was very important when a king, he had an idol of any sort, and then that Ali died, they gave it to their heir. Okay, so this becomes a very controversial story within a story, because by all birthrights, Liho should have inherited Kukailimoku, but instead, Kamehameha designates it to Liho's cousin, Kekua Okalani. This caused a big political stir. Liho did not like this at all, although he didn't fight his father for it, as had happened in times past. He said that's what he wants, so that's what happened. So the coup goes to his cousin, not to Liho. So at this time, another big political change in the land. Up to that time, Kamehameha was a supreme ruler. No co-rulers, no prime minister, no nothing like that. He had councils of chiefs, many chiefs, but he had the absolute say about everything. Now this all changes when Kamehameha dies, because what happens is a very important change in the political realm, is that Kamehameha, before he dies, appoints Ka'ahumanu and gives her this title, Puhina Nui. This word does not ever appear in Hawaiian history until this time, Puhina Nui, which roughly translates to be prime minister and co-ruler. For a prime minister and then most importantly, she becomes co-ruler. Okay? He's not the sole sovereign of the land. He has to co-rule with Ka'ahumanu. This is a huge dynamic shift in political power. Huge. Liho was not necessarily enamored of this idea as well. He's going, I lost the coup, no, I can't be the supreme leader, what? So it was a very difficult time for Liho. His last words, I found two different interpretations of his last words. The first is, Eoni wale no oko, e kukupono, aole e pao. Endless is the good that I have given to you to enjoy. The the other one is e no vale oko kubupono. Enjoy peacefully the honest principles for which I have stood. Let's look at the cause of death now. In his later years, Kamehameha suffered greatly from chronic insomnia, a condition called kani-kani a'ula. Kani-kani a'ula. He also suffered with recurring nightmares and loss of appetite. I speculate, this is Miss Me and Napoleon, I'm going to speculate that he suffered from PTSD to some extent. Kind of has all the symptoms, some of you are familiar with that. And insomnia is, I know all of you suffer like me from insomnia as you get older. But put together, all of these put together, it greatly affected his health. He also, over a period of several months, he began to waste away, although his mind was still sharp. So finally he dies. The king is dead, long live the king. Liho at the time was only 23 years old, which is not exceptionally young, but on the young side. Notice here the dress, the outfit that Liho has on. There aren't many images. I couldn't find one image of him without this uniform on. And I hope Brooke Parker will address this and do a painting about him without the Western garb on. So immediately, we see again the shift in dynamics and in power. He's wearing Western garb already, clothing. Liho is. When the call goes out, that the king is dead, Kamehameha goes out, people are running around telling this in the community, all hell breaks loose in Kailua. All hell breaks loose. All these words have been written down, and I've seen these words by different people. Wanton public chaos, anarchy, and debauchery ensues in the form of drunkenness, exposing one's genitalia, the highest form of disregard, fighting, excessive fornication, taunting and insulting others, lighting fires, stealing, and there were many other things. Now, to a certain extent, this wasn't a complete breakdown of society in general. This was allowed. It was part of the protocol, okay? When a high chief died, you let the people kind of run amok for a while, but then you have to rein them in after. So, this is a typical reaction to Li'i death.
Sounds like politics.
Here's a term, interesting term, and I have a 3-page list of terms in the handout material. Kumakena, to lament, bewail, mourn loudly for the dead. Ue, or spelled okina e. But most people know today know the words. W-V-E. Uve. But I use ue just because to get people used to seeing the other version of this word. Okay. Mournful lamentation, which is what I did coming in. In 1843, James J. Jarvis, who was a publisher and editor of the Polynesian, one of the earliest newspapers of Hawaii, and the government organ, the government newspaper, he wrote this of Ue. Night and day was a dismal sound prolonged. Its first notes were low, gradually swelling until one full of passionate bursts filled the air and resonated among the neighboring rocks and hills, whose echo threw back the cry, rising almost to a shriek of bitterness. So you can imagine what I did, compounded 100 times in Kailua Village, with hundreds of people going through this and doing this. It must have been overwhelming. Here's another form of maneva, which is exaggerated expression of grief, as by knocking out teeth in this example. So here's two images, one of a man on your left and a woman on the right, showing their teeth bashed out. And that's what I did with that rock. So there were two ways of doing it. Self-doing it, which was less common, but another version I read about was you had to have a helper. So your helper had a pole of some kind, a wooden pole, and you put the pole up here, going that way. Wait. I think the rock was by the mouth, and then the pole out here, and your helper would, hit it, and then the rock would hit over here. Yeah. Self-mutilation. But very common. Mourning haircuts. This is really interesting. So another form of mourning. So the one on the left is called okiki kepa, and a kikepa is similar to what I'm wearing. And so I think the imagery is, see how this kikepa comes down on one side long and then short on the other side? So they would cut this side short. Oki is the word for to cut. And then you had a oki mahiole, which is the feather helmet, cut. And then the last one, oki pa'i iole. I couldn't find any image of this cut used with a Hawaiian person in it, but because I know that most Hawaiians had a kinky hair and short kinky hair, not that many people had that long hair. So most people had short kinky hair. So I picked a African American guy, it looks like, with a short kinky hair at the top. But iole, what's the word's iole? Rat. So it's a rat, they call it the rat cut. Like a rat came along and buzzed you on the side. And today we call this the buzz cut for men, right? And in my glossary, I tell you the story about that a little bit more. Who's this? Aquaman. I put this in because to show the two other forms of normal haircuts, the ponytail in the back and then the bun. They call it the bun cut now. So who else to better illustrate this? It's Manoa. So handsome, this guy. So then another form of maneva was to burn the skin by using bark roll. So I found a picture of one. This is bark. The word for bark is ili, and then this one is, the ili is made of the maia, the banana bark, outer bark, and roll like this. And then you take the roll and you stick it in the fire, and then you burn yourself like that. Okay. On the table, I made a roll, a bark roll, but not of banana. I couldn't find banana in my neighborhood, but nearby in the park that I live near, there's coconut trees, and I made a coconut bark thing. So that's over there. And after we're done, you can come up and look at those things and handle them. And then another form to show deep grief for your ali'i was to tattoo yourself, get a tattoo, I should say. And a common tattoo was to have the word, it was always, I've never seen one spelled with the K. I've seen many forms of Kamehameha starting with the T. And as many of you know, T's and K's were, what do you call it? Yeah. So here's one that says this. P-O-E, which should be poe, people, person, died May 5th, 1819, and then died May 8th, 1819. Then the word Kamehameha spelled T-A-M-A-A-H M-A-H. And I have to look at this like 10 times before I could pronounce this. Tamahama. Tamahama. It's the closest I can get to that. And this was common to do this. I had this, that's why I put that on my arm. But then I spelled it wrong, I had to take it off. I was going to show you guys at my desk. Okay, let's talk about the body preparation now. The first part in the body preparation is pikai, the cleansing and purification of the body. So all his clothes were first removed and burned because they're defiled and they must be discarded so as not to defile the immediate area. His body was laid out and sprinkled with salt water using tea leaves. And you've all seen at different ceremonies today, Kapu doing the pikai ceremony. And I brought my own bowl and tea leaf thing over there. And then they would actually embalm. They embalmed him. And the word for that is i'aloa. I'aloa. So they would put his cleansed body down on the mat. They would cut open his chest. His organs and tissues were removed. And then those organs and tissues were placed in umeke, like this. I don't know how many it took, but something like this. And then this umeke was put on a canoe and they were taken out to sea so they wouldn't defile the land. Then his body cavity was cleaned out and packed with salt and olena, turmeric, for purification. And I think olena also might have had a aromatic quality to it. The next step was kipoa kino, to wrap the body. So now we have his embalmed body there, and they laid him out, again he was laid out, and they put a lauhala mat down first, put him on that. They covered him with maia, banana, wake, paper mulberry, kalo, taro, leaves, those leaves, and pulu from the kapu, fern tree. Then they wrapped him in kapa, then in lauhala mat, then corded the mat. Here's a picture of my hapu'u tree in my backyard, and a close-up of, this is where the pulu comes. And I have the pulu here on the table is from my tree. And I want you all to handle that because it's really very fine, it's very silky. And they use pulu for this purposes. They use it to stuff, to make pillows. They use it for many different purposes. Or here's a mortuary purpose. This is the most important, interesting part of this whole story about how they prepared, what they did with his body to me, because I didn't know this. I knew to a little bit vague idea that they emued human beings, but I thought they were all because people who broke the kapu. But no, they did this for chiefs, okay? They made an imu kalua loa, long-term underground baking pit, long-term, okay? They dug, this is the ground, they dug a hole that was, in a regular imu for a pig, how deep do we dig the hole usually? About how deep? 2 to 3 to 4 feet, depending on the size of the pig. Okay? But because human beings are basically the same size, it was only 1 foot deep. The pit, they dug it out, they had the dirt out, they dug the pit, and now they took that bundle with the king wrapped in the kapa and the lauhala mat, and they put his wrapped corpse in the pit, in the lua. And then, instead of building in a imu, a regular for pua'a, the fire is on the bottom. You make your fire first, you cover, then it works its way down, you put your banana leaves, then you put the pig, and then you put the covering on top of that. So the fire is coming from the bottom. But in this pit, this Imu Kalualoa, they put the fire on top. They put the dirt that they dug up on top of the body, and then they lit the fire, and that fire went for 10 days. So it was slow baked. The results, the result was that all the tissue, all the organs melted essentially in this, and became muck in there. So then they removed up the body after 10 days. They cleaned all the bones off and put away the pella, the defiled material, and they discarded it again, took it out to sea or took it up Mauka to get it out of the area. And then they took the bones and they removed it from the imu. Then the imu was placed in Hale Poke, the mortuary house. Poke refers not to the dog, or cat rather, but to the term for that, the definition is finely stitched or mesh. So whatever they made the hale out of was finely stitched and meshed building. And one source said there were bones woven into the hale. So the full, the bundle that came out of the imu was open, bones cleaned. The bones were disarticulated, which means you remove the long bones and the short bones, and then you make a smaller bundle. And then this bundle was placed in a ka'ai, a woven casket made of aha. Aha is a coconut husk fiber. And I have samples that I collected from Kalama Beach again, near my house, showing what it looks like in the coconut husk, what it looks like once they've taken it out of the husk, and then what they made it into finally was the aha, the coconut husk fiber, the rope. Okay. Then the eyes were made out of mother of pearl, and the teeth were the actual teeth bones of Kamehameha. Now neither of these two caskets, ka'ai, are Kamehameha's caskets. There's no image of Kamehameha's casket at all. These are bona fide to be the ka'ai of High Chief Liloa and Lono Ikamakahiki from several centuries before. Now, when at this part, then word kahea went out. Okay, enough of all that debauchery and everything. Calm down, everybody. Get back to normalcy. And they ordered everybody to go into their houses because the next part of the protocols was the most important, the most religiously important part of the ceremony, and there had to be completely calm going on in order for the Kahuna Pule, the priest, the prayer priest, to do their thing. So then the next part was deification. In Hawaiian, kaku'ai, transfiguration of an ali'i into the realm of akua maoli, the true gods, Ku, Kane, Lono, and Kanaloa, the four major gods. So deification was the last in the step that ali'i had to go through this in order to ascend to the realm of the gods and to be with the highest gods and to become transfigured into amakua for their descendants, to become guardians of your descendants. But you became up there with the big guys, gods. So deification, kaku'ai. This was performed in, here we come to Ahu'ena. All the deification happens in here. This is how it has to happen. So they transfer him over to Ahu'ena Hell. And then they switch from Kahuna La'au Lapa'au to Kahuna Pule. So now how I was saying before, there's different kinds of kahuna that do have different functions. So now they bring in the highest kupuna of the land, who is named Heva Heva. And those of you who study Hawaiian history know that this Heva Heva is very, very well known and very, very important kahuna of our land. So he was brought in to conduct the deification part of it. I'm going to talk about more of the heiau a little bit. Then the kahai was taken into the ahuena, the main part of the complex, and in the halimana, the prayer house. Deification prayers were made to the god Lono, who was a god of agriculture, and other gods. A pua'a, pig, was killed and placed upon the lele. This is a lele right here. It's essentially 4 upright posts like this, and then a platform at the top, 6 to 8 feet off the ground. Now, before Kamehameha gave his edict that henceforth there shall be no sacrifices, this is where human sacrifices were put on top of the lele. Okay. But now we see it was recorded that there's a pua'a there upon the lele. Here's the reconstructed ahuena heiau as it exists today. They started constructing in the 1970s, and they're still at it. It was first constructed as a luakini, a sacrificial heiau, but then it was converted to a ho'oulu'ai, agricultural heiau by Kamehameha. Because he brought peace and prosperity to the land, and he didn't need to do sacrifices anymore. So here's labeling the different buildings in Ahuena today. Halimana, the prayer house, the main building. Then you have the Anu'u Tower, or the Oracle Tower in white, covered in white kapa. And then the building, the lele here, with nothing on it in this particular photo. And how they call it, drum house, yeah. Here's another view, a different view, showing the different buildings again. And this is a better view because it's showing the ki'i now, the large ki'i, for religious idols. Now kua ki'i. Then we have these some smaller ki'i called akua ki'i. This is at the top of this guy here. It's not a real bird, but a wooden bird, a replica of the plover. In Hawaiian, what is plover? Kolea. Polo. Here's a different view of the lele today, showing that people are visiting there and leaving tribute. Now, they're not leaving human sacrifices, they're not leaving whole pigs. Today they're leaving what we call ho'okupu, or tributes or offering, which is what I have there, I made here. This is a ho'okupu. In this setting, this particular bundle that I made after the program is going to go to my friend and my research assistant, Phil Beavers, as a makana, a gift. Okay. But in this setting, that bundle is a ho'okupu, a tribute. Nawai e ho'ola I na'iwi. Who shall have the bones? Now, this gets to be another sticking point, okay? A political sticking point. Is Kai my oboe ear here today? Okay, I'll tell you who that is in a minute. So who shall have the bones? So when Ali died, it was traditional that someone be designated to take those bones and hide them secretly someplace, either on the land or in a sea cave of some kind. So, Kamehameha designates, oops, sorry, I always get confused between the pointer and the mover, so sorry. He appoints specifically Ulamahehe, which was his given name, Ulamahehe, but Kamehameha gave him this additional name, Ho'opili, and most people today know him as Ho'opili. He was the chosen one. And then he enlisted the help of, now this was a political thing because other people wanted said, no, that not him, somebody else, so they had an argument about that. But Kamehameha insisted this was his chosen one. And then Ho'opili enlists the help of his half-brother, Ho'olulu. So let's look at the genealogy of these two guys. Here's Ho'olulu, and here's Ho'opili on the chart. Their father was Kame'aimoku, who was the twin brother of Kamanawa, and these two are on our coat of arms. These are the actual depictions of these two men, Kamanawa and Kame'aimoku. And these two guys were related to Kamehameha and were his closest advisors. So very high lineage coming down through here, Kamanawa and Kame'aimoku, and then down to Ho'olulu and Ho'opili. And then coming further down comes Kai, who was born in 18. So Ho'olulu, one of the brothers, his wife is pregnant at the time, and only 2 months after the king dies, they have a baby, and they name him Kai, who was born just a couple of months after, in 1819. And then that name comes down through several generations to the current curator of Mauna Ala, whose name is William Kahe'ekai Maioho, the 6th generation in his line of curators at Mauna Ala. So then their sacred duty is to take the iwi, the ka'ai, and to hide it. This becomes the most controversial part of this whole story. This is a painting by Brooke Parker that was given to Kai, living today, his father, who was a curator before him, Bill Maioho. And it depicts Ho'olulu and Ho'opili. With Ho'olulu has Kamehameha's ka'ai on his back, and Ho'opili is carrying a musket, and they're going to go off and bury the ka'ai. Now, there's different versions of this, okay?
Speak into the mic.
Huh?
Speak into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I speaking into this? Sorry. Hello, hi. So, thank you for just saying that. So here Brooke Parker's interpretation of their going off into the night. It had to be night because it had to be secret. Nobody could see that, and I'll explain that in a minute. Now here's the part that kind of changes. The story is not entirely clear. We know that Keopuolani, the sacred wife of Kamehameha, was part of this. She becomes part of that. And she's the mother of Liho. Okay. Now, there was supposed to be 1 or 2, Bill, or 3 guys going with one was, I'm not going to get into all the details because it's really complicated, but there may have been 1 or 2 other guys involved in here that knew where the cave was and leading Ho'opili and Ho'olulu to the cave. Protocol dictated that all of the iwi should be buried secretly, huna kele, at night, so that they would not be found by an enemy and used in ways which were humiliating, such as made into fishhooks, pendants, arrowheads, needles, or part of a kahili staff. Great mana resided in the iwi. Therefore, an enemy who possessed these gained additional mana and therefore additional power. That's why they had to be hidden at night. Mahea ina iwi. Where are the bones? Okay, that's the big question everybody wants to know. Where are those bones? at Mauna Ala. Because here's the Kamehameha tomb, a picture of it, showing that the first Kamehameha to be buried at Mauna Ala, showing listed on the monument as Kamehameha the second, then the third, the fourth, the fifth. So but Kamehameha is not listed here. This is very controversial, but we're not going there. My research assistant Phil and I have been doing a lot of research on this, and it's really a super complicated issue. It's worthy of a lecture all by itself, really. Now here's some contenders about where the Idi were eventually taken. There were several contenders. Some of the chiefs were arguing that the Idi should go to Koko'iki, which is Kamehameha's birthplace in Kohala. Here's a picture of the actual birthplace, and the sign says Kamehameha Akahi, the first, Aina birthplace. This is one of the contenders that they say, Kohala people say, he's buried here. People in Lahaina say, no, he's buried at Moko'ula, which is a little island in Lahaina. There was a big pond in this area, then there was a little island within the pond, and that's the name of Moko'ula. And if you go to their website, they tell you he's buried there. Because it was a traditional burial ground already. And they don't explain exactly why. I don't have any more details than that, but I pick on how they validated that. Maui people also said, no, he's not down in Lahaina, he's in Eo Valley someplace. Here's a map showing the three most prominent and viable places, or some are viable, two are viable, one is not. One is here in that he was buried in Kailua, actually, in the residential compound, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Another place is Kaloko, over here, a few miles north, and then another place is Keikaha, up here. So let's talk about those three contenders. The theory that he's buried in Kamakohonu comes from a Frenchman who arrived here in just a few months after the king died, his ship, and he was a cartographer. There was a guy, a cartographer, Duperret, who compiled this map in August 1819. And this is Kailua Bay, this is the complex, Kamakohonu, and the heiau, and then a detail of this section. And he has a list of things in there, and number C says Tomb of Tamahama. Tomb of Tamahama. I personally discount this because no way they would bury him right in the village where everybody knew. Come on, they don't do that. So, but to me, I think what Duperret, it misinterpreted what was going on, and he saw the king in the halepoke or something, and he interpreted that to be his tomb. He didn't understand. He's new. He's only been in the islands a few months. Okay, the king died in May, and he comes in August, and he's trying to make sense of what's going on, and he doesn't speak Hawaiian, and he's trying to make sense. So I just think it was a matter of misinterpretation that he was buried there. That's only my idea. Another contender is Koloko Fish Pond, just north of Kailua. There's an aerial view of the fish pond. And Koloko is now part of Koloko Hono Kohau National Historical Park. This is what their website says. Koloko Fish Pond is highly respected by the Hawaiians as a burial place of King Kamehameha's remains. Although there is no firm proof of this event, his bones were supposedly transported by canoe from Kailua to Koloko, where his bearers of the royal remains met a man in charge of the secret burial cave, and together they placed the bones in the same depository used by Kahikili, another famous chief. Here's another version of where that relates to Kaloko. So this is a weird story. That's spilled after. According to King Kalakaua in 1888, he sent out 2 men, and this is, I'll show you the document we got this from. He sent out 2 men to search for the iwi of Kamehameha at the, quote, cave of Kahiku o Namoku at Kaloko. Names the actual cave in Kaloko. The men found an incomplete set of bones wrapped in kapa and determined them to be those of Kamehameha. These bones were given to King Kalakaua, who sent them to be deposited at Mauna Ala on the island of Oahu. Here's the primary source document, the original source document, Kamehameha's handwriting in Hawaiian, signed by him down here, Kalakaua, that Phil found just on Saturday, this past Saturday. He spent hours in Bishop Museum archives looking for this document. I found the source originally from a book one of the source books that I have, that says this document exists and it's labeled as a certificate. So then, and it says it's at Bishop Museum, but didn't have a call number. So he spent hours and hours in there looking over all kind of material and didn't find it until just Saturday. So he scanned it and then I put it in the thing right away in the show. So this is Kalakaua's version, right? However, Kalakaua's version was almost immediately dissed. People disagreed with his, that this was actually the Kamehameha's iwi, this bundle that came out of that cave, including Lahi Lahi Webb, which is most vocal opponent to Kalakaua's view. In her youth, Webb was a lady-in-waiting to Queen Liliuokalani, and she worked in her later years for Bishop Museum for 20 years. She was a highly respected Hawaiian cultural authority. She writes a letter countering Kalakaua's claim, and that letter Phil found in Bishop Museum Library. There was also another man named Edgar Enriquez who wrote a similar letter, and it's also at Bishop Museum. We have all those documents now. Okay, notice. The whereabouts of the iwi recovered at Kaloko Cave and given to King Kalakaua is a story that is very complicated and controversial, even today. Due to time restraints, this story will not be told today. Another site contender, I got from famous Hawaiian historian Samuel Kamakau. He wrote both Ruling Chiefs of Hawaii, his book Ruling Chiefs, and his book The People of Old. In both of these books, he says it was at Keikaha in the north of the sites. In both of his books, he says that. So here is Keikaha Kona, 16 miles north of Kailua, showing part of it over there. Now, you have to remember that all islands had sea caves, they had land caves, they were everywhere. There were hundreds and hundreds of them everywhere. Could have been here. That's what Kamakau says. Mahia ina iwi. So where are those bones? Is it there? Is it there? Is it there? No, it's over there. We don't know. It could be in a land cave someplace. It could be in a sea cave someplace. Both have been put out there. Only the morning star knows where the bones are buried. This is a very famous phrase that's quoted in almost all of the books and articles about Kamehameha, but nobody has cited this phrase. I thought it was from a Olelo Noeau proverb, but I searched high and low for that in there. We didn't see it in there. But it's a beautiful phrase. Only the morning stars know where the bones are buried. pa, the end. Hey no no,